Well, good morning. My name is Tom. I come to you from the Rustic log cabin in Northern Maine. Welcome to the great state of Maine. I've had a couple of comments about people enjoying memory lane, stuff like that. So I figured I would make a couple videos and we'll just talk about the great state of Maine. Like with all the states, things have changed, not for the good, but we still have some great memories, and with any luck, we'll get back to some of the good stuff that Maine has always been known for. I'm just, I'm not gonna, just the way it is, I guess. But anyways, I was talking earlier. The last couple of videos, we did a shout out video to Scott to mend up and get healthy again. And then the first one was about old Maine, and just some of that stuff was laid in there. The list goes on and on when you got 50 years of travel in the state of Maine. This all started with Scott. He sent me a picture and wanted me to make a guess of where that was. It was a picture of a bridge. It was a picture of a stream with a boat landing. And I thought about that picture for 3 or 4 days. And I could place it with a half a dozen different places. I didn't hit the right one. It actually was a bridge at Baker Lake where you put your canoes in and start the St. John River. But I had it down for a half a dozen other places that looked exactly like it. My memory bank just couldn't remember back to that bridge at Baker Lake. So, but anyways, that's what kind of got me thinking about these things here in the state of Maine. So, and we might as well start way back, in the beginning, back in the 70s. In the 70s, we used to travel up to what's called Wadley Pond. And if you're ever interested in a ride, it is a nice ride. You can even make it into a loop ride if you want, I think. How we used to get there is through Canada. And there was a dirt road that came out of Maine that went right through the customs, the border crossing. So you had to sign in. The only way in was there. There was no roads up there to come from Maine. So the only road in was through Canada and then back into Canada to get back home. And back then, crossing the border wasn't that big of a deal. None at all. We actually spent the night right at the border crossing because you had to wait for it to open in the morning. I think it opened at 7 o'clock in the morning, and then so you'd sleep. You didn't set up tents and stuff like that, but you slept in the truck until morning anyways. You'd get up there the night before, wait out the night, and then you would sign in the morning and then head on in. So, but when you get in there, it was some pretty wild country. The trout fishing was some of the best I've ever done in my entire life. We fished everything from beaver bogs to streams, ponds, lakes, lots and lots of lakes up in that area to fish, and so many brooks to fish that, and you would never ever clean them out of brook trout. We had one brook that we would fish that there was so many brook trout in it that they were starving to death, and they would literally take an empty hook. You drop an empty hook in the stream and you'd have 10 brookies fighting over it. We're not talking about massive ones. We're talking about little brook trout, little pan frying brook trout that run anywhere from 5 inches to 10 inches, and all you could eat. And back then it was kind of smorgasbord, all you could eat. We didn't, well, it was a whole different life back then, let's put it that way. Whole different life, the way everybody kind of looked at it. And we would go fish and catch as many brookies as we wanted to eat, and that's what we did. But that was 50 years ago. Times have changed, a lot of things have changed, so don't look at it that way anymore. Don't look that. I'm still battling my cold, so hang on. I got a sniffle every once in a while. But one of the fishing trips that I really, when you're going up back 50 years, it's going to take a heck of a fishing trip to stick out in your mind. I was, at that time, I was 10 or 12 years old, and I could walk from the tent site. We stayed in campers and tents, and I could walk from that tent site down to a brook and fish it every day, and then come home and then walk back. Only 2-mile walk. But one night I went down there, and there was one hole. We're talking, when we say holes, I'm talking maybe the size of a wash tub, because it was just a small brook. But I dropped my worm in there, and out came a 15-inch and a 16-inch brookie out from underneath that big rock. And it was probably about 6 o'clock at night. So that was, those are the two biggest fish I ever caught out of that stream the whole time I fished it as a kid. What my father would do sometimes is drop me off. He would drop me off, like him and my brother would be headed to a lake to go lake fishing with the boat. So that I loved to brook fish back then. I couldn't get enough of it. So anyways, they would drop me off with my fish pole, my can of worms, and then I would fish until I had enough, or had more than enough, and then I would walk back to where the tent was. Well, the deal was, I think you were allowed 8 brookies back then. So the deal was, if I caught more than 8 brookies, there was a rock up on the dirt road that I would flip over, or maybe pile another rock on top of it, and that was a sign to my father that he had some brook trout to pick up. I would hide him in the bushes, anything that was over my limit, and the sign for my father and brother to stop and pick them up was their limit of brookies was in the bushes. So, and nowadays you look back on that and you really frown. But that was the kind of stuff that we did back then. I don't know of too many people that didn't. We do a video like this and they'll all come out of the woodwork and say, "We never did that." Well, I'm telling you the way it was. And the way it was flip over a rock, and there was a pile of brookies waiting for my family to pick up and bring back to camp, and we had supper. I don't remember the numbers. We didn't fish until we had a creel full, but I believe what I probably did was 16 fish would have hiding in the bush for him, because that was 8 fish a piece for them. So that meant they drove back to the cabin with 16 fish, 8 apiece. And I did have another brother out there as well, so he maybe was, I don't remember everything back then, but he maybe had a limit of trout for him too. So, but that was how that played out. And got back to the cabin, and we had all kinds of brookies to eat. What was really nice, I say cabin, it was a tent and a camper. What was really nice about where we camped, though, was there was a spring that came down off the mountain, and it was stone cold. And we could put our fish in that stream, or our milk, or anything that we wanted to stay cold. We could put it in that stream, and it was just like a refrigerator. Stone cold water, stone cold. So that's where the fish stayed until mealtime. We cleaned them up, put them on a stringer, put them in the stream until dinner time, and in evenings we would get the campfire going and cook up our fish. And my brother, he's 2 years younger than I am. You couldn't get him enough brookies. He'd sit there and he'd eat every single brook trout until it was gone. So it wasn't like a fish ever went to waste, because we were 3 growing boys plus my parents. So we could eat some fish. We could eat some fish. And we did that trip with my grandparents. My grandparents would go, and they would usually have another couple. But maybe, I don't know. Yeah, it's been 10 minutes. Oh, it's been 10 minutes. I want to keep these at 8 to 10 minutes, so we're gonna shut this one down. And then it'll be still part of this fishing trip and what we did every single year. It wasn't like it was just once in a while. Then we get into the raspberry season. Raspberry season up there, and fishing and all of that. So you'll find that pretty interesting too. So we'll work that into a video as well. But anyways, have yourself a cup of coffee. This right here is a 44 Magnum. A 44 Magnum with a big heavy barrel. It shoots nice. I can do better. So I'm still playing with load for that one. But anyways, I'll bring you back. We're going to talk about raspberry season here in the state of Maine, and brook trout season, and fiddle season, bird season, deer season, moose season. These are all part of the childhood memories that I have, and I'm going to tell it the way it is, the way it was, whether it was legal or whether it wasn't. It was 50 years ago. Statute of limitations must have run out somewhere. Oh well, have a cup of coffee, and I will see you next week.